South Point is also proud to provide a variety of relaxing amenities for the guests who want to be pampered. Soak up the sun and let your stress melt away in our lagoon-style paradise swimming pool. A relaxing getaway where you can bask in the desert sun and enjoy seasonal food and bar service poolside. And if you really want to escape, come to Spa Costa del Sur. From couple suites to a co-ed wet area, our spa caters to business and leisure travelers who want to unwind and elevate their senses. A visit to one of our spa's steam, sauna, or whirlpool treatment rooms will leave any guest feeling like they can take on the world. Our gaming amenities include over 60 table games and over 2,600 of the most popular slot and video poker machines. We have penny slots, including the popular Buffalo games, and real machines like Wheel of Fortune, Triple Sevens, and Megabucks. If you prefer video poker, try Deuces Wild, Double Bonus, or a variety of multi-denomination games. Or try your hand at one of the most popular casino table games in the world, Blackjack. Don't let the game intimidate you. Blackjack, also known as 21, is both easy and fun. And our dealers are always happy to assist. And the best part? Blackjack always pays 3 to 2. Next, check out the roulette tables. Roulette is one of the easiest casino games to learn, and so much fun to play. It's a favorite of both beginners and seasoned players. In addition to blackjack and roulette, our casino pit features over 60 popular table games like Baccarat, Pai Gow Poker, 3-Card Poker, Ultimate Texas Hold'em, and Mississippi Stud. So get out of your room and come join in the fun.
It's Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. Here's Jeff Parles and Alex White.
Welcome in at Sports by the Book here at the South Point Studio. I'm Jeff Parles. Alex White is alongside. We are thrilled to be with you as always. Week 18 in the National Football League. And Alex, we've made it to the end. Sadly enough for all of us, only 14 games to go in the NFL regular season.
Hey, looking forward to a really good playoff run, though, here with these teams. A lot of good teams and some meaningful games today that we will get to.
Well, we can start with one that does mean something right out of the gate. We got a bunch of stuff that doesn't mean anything, and good luck trying to handicap a lot of these games here today. And we'll start with one that does matter in Tampa Bay here today, as the Bucs welcome in the New Orleans Saints. The Bucs need a win to win the NFC South. Very simple on this front here. Tampa wins, they're in. They'll either be the 3 or the 4 seed, depending on what happens later in the day in Los Angeles. And the betting market is treating this as so. It's up to 14.5. After it opened 14.5, got taken down to 13. Now back up the ladder north of 14. No Derek Carr, no Alvin Kamara, no Chris Olave again. That's a trio that we haven't seen for a while for New Orleans all out. Spencer Rattler gets the start for the Saints here today. But Tampa is very simple with that Atlanta loss last Sunday night in Washington. If the Bucs win, they win the division yet again as 14.5-point favorites. And
they've looked very impressive as of late. In their last 3 games, they've averaged 37 points per game. The last 3 games going over the Bucs yards, 551 last week against Carolina, 410 versus Dallas, and they lost that game, and then 506 against the Chargers. I chose to play this. I'm going over the total here. I went over 43.5. I think you're okay still here at 44.5. We might need a little bit of help from the Saints, but they are still playing. Spencer Rattler's getting more and more comfortable. Only scored 10 last week against the Raiders, but this Bucs defense has given up some points as well. They're 17th in points allowed. They're 21st in total yards allowed. So I expect a lot of offense here, especially from the Tampa Bay side. If you want to just play the team total, I don't hate that as well, even looking at some alternate numbers, but 29.5 is what Chris and company opened here at the South Point. Have to check the updated. I'm sure it's moved up a little bit, but I'm okay with that one as well.
For anything sub 14 or 14 seemed pretty reasonable here to me, Alex. I mean, it's a big number. It's the NFL. We saw a 20-point favorite cover yesterday, by the way. Ravens end up covering that game against the Cleveland Browns. I mean, the Saints, just look at the Saints over the last few weeks. look how bad it has gotten for them after a little bit of a spurt of, all right, well, they beat the Giants. Derek Carr started that game, but whatever. They played New Orleans tough. Rattler came in. They actually had a 2-point conversion that pulled the upset. Really, it would have flipped things in the NFC playoff picture if they had converted that 2-point conversion. But then since then, they've gotten whacked. 59-10 the last 2 weeks, Alex. Shutout in Green Bay, the only shutout of the entire NFL season, period. And then last week, they were home dogs to this version of the Raiders and didn't come close to covering. It's really bad for New Orleans right now. So I'm okay if you want to light it up with Buccaneer anytime touchdown bets here today. You want to lay a price with Mike Evans. You want to lay a price with Bucky Irving. You want to take a shot on Jalen McMillan, Kate Otten, whoever you may want to take your shot on, go for it. I think Tampa is going to be willing to lay the lumber here in this game, Alex. I just wish it wasn't 14.5. Simple as that. Those 14s to 13.5s that are out there, those were the numbers you should have been betting. Don't love going north of 14, though.
Hey, Jeff, did you know that Mike Evans has some incentives today?
Well, he's a few. I mean, future.
I just mean tread lightly because now that is all over social media. Now that sports betting is becoming bigger. Just watch the numbers.
Whatever. It's more so than anything for Evans. Forget the other incentives. For Evans, he's going to Canton one day. Like, he's going to the Hall of Fame. Might be one of the most underrated receivers of all time at this point, but he's going to Canton. Everyone who pays attention knows how good he is. Mike Evans came into the league in 2014. He has never had a sub 1,000-yard season. Remember, he missed a few games earlier in the year with the hamstring injury. Mm-hmm. He needs 85 to continue that streak. I think that's the number more so than anything you need to be looking at just to continue that streak. I think he will, honestly, and don't think New Orleans is the defense to give the resistance on that one. 44.5, by the way, total on this one. If you think that this game can get to the over, you better get some points out of New Orleans because I don't think Tampa's getting a 45 on their own. They could, but I don't think they're getting the 45 on their own.
The Lions are the favorite right now, 6-1 for highest scoring team, and then the Bucks are the second.
They got to be the favorite to score first, though, in this 10 a.m. window. Remember, by time of game, not time of day. Don't go running to Vinny. He won't pay you if you go by time of day.
Them and the Falcons.
Yeah, that makes sense. But two big favorites here today in the NFC South. All right, let's go to New England next. So this one, the reason for the complications in this one, New England, with a loss, gets the first overall pick. The Bills have absolutely nothing to play for here today. They are locked in. They are the 2 seed. They're going to get either Denver, Cincinnati, or Miami when it's all said and done after whatever happens this week. We did have a question of the health of Drake May, who randomly popped on the injury report with a hand injury that was suffered in practice. Okay. Earlier in the week. He's active. He's going to play for the Patriots here today. The biggest name inactive for New England is Christian Gonzalez, their star cornerback. The Bills do not have active today Taron Johnson, Amari Cooper, Terrell Bernard, Christian Benford, Gregory Rousseau, Deion Dawkins, Ed Oliver, and Daquan Jones. Those are the inactives. The active inactives, as I will say, Josh Allen will start the game because they want to continue his consecutive starting streak, which dates back to when he made his first career start in Week 3 in the NFL way back in his rookie year. So you're going to see a cameo. You're going to see a lot of Mitchell Trubisky. You're going to see a bunch of Mike White at quarterback here for the Buffalo Bills. You'll see a little bit of their regular weapons just because, remember, they're not particularly deep at wide receiver. They're very deep at running back. So you see guys who are involved there. But, Alex, good luck here. It's 3 with Buffalo laying it even with their backups. Total is 36.5, which is a super low total. The weather is windy in Foxborough. 18-mile-an-hour winds consistently, so that's really more so than the lack of star power in this game. The wind is really the reason for that total nosediving.
There's way too much uncertainty in this one for me to even make a bet. I would lean to taking the points here with the Patriots because Mayo, there are rumors that he might be one and done as a head coach there in New England. So I think he will have his team ready to go and be playing for a win, even though they need a loss for that number 1 pick. And Drake May's been really good as a rookie. We've talked about it all year long. So a little bit of a lean to taking the points, but I didn't do anything in this one.
It is a very difficult game, which is what we're going to be saying a lot here today, Alex, which, well, it's week 18. This is the nature of the beast, unfortunately, when we're looking at a lot of this across the board here this week in the NFL. That total really took a dive. Opened at 40, 3.5 point dive because of that weather report in Foxborough. All right, let's go to Green Bay next. Packers. The Packers are playing their guys here today, and you know what? I agree with Matt LaFleur here. If you get a weird result in Dallas, which we'll get to in a little bit, Green Bay can move up. Mm-hmm. And there is a difference between being the 6 and the 7 seed. Green Bay wins and Washington wins. Green Bay will be the 7 seed for the second consecutive season. So there is a little bit on the line for the Packers. Bears haven't won since week 6. Looking to end the year on an 11. Well, looking to avoid ending the year on an 11-game losing streak. This team was 4-2 at one point. Our good friend Ryan McCormick sent me this morning. The last time the Bears have won on the road on a Sunday has been 1,106 days. The last time they beat the Packers was 2,212 days. Wow. The last time they won in Green Bay, it just keeps getting worse, guys, 3,328 days. Last time they won a playoff game was 51-03. That we know will extend past today. And the last time they won a final week of the season game against Green Bay, 14,994 days since the Bears have beaten the Packers in a final week game. Honestly, the Bears should have beat the Packers earlier this year in the game in Chicago. Remember, that was a game where Love had a big turnover. Packers found a way to take the lead late, and then the Bears had the field goal blocked at the end, and the Packers only won by a single point. Alex, I'd only lay the lumber with Green Bay. I'd only lay it. The Bears are a total DOA team at this point. The firing of Eberflus has not helped things. It's actually made things worse. Thomas Brown not ready for the moment as an interim head coach. And Green Bay, Green Bay likes beating the bejesus out of the Bears. And I do expect us to see the starters full blown at least for 3 quarters here until the game is well in hand for Green Bay. So I have no problem laying the lumber. This is one of the few quote unquote meaningless games that I'm okay laying lumber with here today.
That is the only way that I would play it as well, but I made that number right there at 11 with the Packers. The Bears, I mean, you just brought up all their losses, and they have only covered in 1 of their last 10 games. So even though it looks like a lot of points here, especially with the division game, I can't really trust them to even keep it close. So I don't hate that at all, but it did not make my card today, side or total.
So we'll keep you acclaimed on basically everything. Again, the Packers going for it here today, and quite frankly, no problem with that. The only thing I would say is if this game is well in hand, put Love on the bench, just get Malik Willis in the game, of course, with the injuries that are around. All right, go ahead, Alex.
Could be a good first half play, and I know you and Chris Andrews and Vinny talked about that a lot. Some of these big favorites, maybe looking at them in the first half. I mean, besides Minnesota, which Green Bay has just struggled against, the Packers have been really good in the first half. And we know the Bears, I mean, they were going on a nice little streak there where they had not scored in the first half. So that might be a better way to play that.
Want to lay 7?
Ooh.
I'll take that as a no. Or hey, I got to think about this. Yeah. 7 with juice, by the way, in that first half across the board.
So not the first person to think that way.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's. We're gonna bounce around a little bit here today because again, these games in rotation order are not in time order. We'll keep it with some 10 a.m. games here at first, and we'll just get this doozy out of the way. And that's the Colts hosting the Jaguars, and this is just. Look, this is just a brutal game any way you slice it. Even in a normal circumstances, wouldn't be the most appealing. Flacco starts for Indianapolis. Again, Anthony Richardson's season is over. The Colts last week, of course, just with that abominable loss to the Giants that knocked them out for good from playoff contention. They take on the Jags, who have not been playing for anything for a long while at this point. I was a little bit floored that this game took as long to come down the ladder as it has. So it opened 5, and it stayed there until Friday. Didn't move. Then started to come down the ladder, touched 3 last night, and now is back up to 3.5 with Indy. Good luck. Good luck pre-flop in this game. I have no idea what motivation is going to be on either side in this one. I mean, the Jacksonville coaching staff is done. We know that. We've known that for months. Yeah. Khan is just letting them coach out the string. They're going to be a new regime in Jacksonville. Indy, look, I think that whole regime is probably on the hot seat. I don't know if Irsay will can any of those guys. I don't know if today will influence if a decision or not. But good luck trying to find a pre-flop angle other than throw Jonathan Taylor into an anytime touchdown. And if you want to take Brian Thomas Jr. props, go right ahead. Dude has been amazing for Jacksonville this year.
With that being said, expecting some touchdowns on both sides of the ball. Small play for me, not a big bet, but I did take over in
Happy
this
action,
game.
fun time.
I mean, both defenses are very bad. You just talked about the Colts, and they gave up 45 points. Drew Luck threw for over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, and Mac Jones, he's done decent enough for this Jags team. And you brought up Brian Thomas Jr., who's having a very good year. So I do like the over in this one. Almost made a contest, but it was the first one out. So small bet for me, though.
I can't really argue with that. I mean, it's just, it goes one of two ways here on that total. This is either an absolute disaster of a game and no one scores, or it's what you said. And this game's 21-21 at halftime and sitting pretty on that 44.5. Can't really fault you on that. Two defenses that do stink. Defenses do stink for sure. All right, let's hit Carolina and Atlanta here. So the Falcons, they're alive. They're alive. They need a monster upset to happen in Tampa, and then they have to handle their own business at home against Carolina in order to win the NFC South, get the 4 seed, and I would imagine that the loser of Detroit and Minnesota, though being aggravated they're not the 1 seed, would look at the schedule and say, oh, we get to go play inside in Atlanta against a weaker team. Not the end of the world. We'll get a third crack at the Lions or the Vikings, whoever loses that game later. So 8.5, total up 47-49. I mean, Carolina's defense is just eviscerated with injuries. They were beyond awful last week against Tampa Bay. They're actually still giving up points to the Bucs a week later. Tampa put 48 on them last week. It's just a question of, will Atlanta be able to score enough in this game in order, because I'm looking at the total. Will the Falcons be able to get to the number that you need in order to push this game over the total? I think the Panthers will score. I know it's backwards to say that about the favorite, but you get Atlanta into the 30s. I think you're pretty good on it over at 49 here today in an indoor game, Alex.
I do think the Panthers will score as well. I stayed away from this one because, I mean, don't trust the Falcons enough just yet with Michael Penix Jr. And while I do think that this is the right number and they should be an 8-point favorite over the Panthers, besides last week, I mean, we really saw Carolina still playing hard. And Bryce Young, you know, he's been really good since the benching, and they even beat Arizona 36-30, and then they just came up short last week against Tampa Bay. So which Carolina team are we going to get, though? And you mentioned it, a lot of injuries, also no Chuba Hubbard for the rest of the year, and that really hurt them offensively. So this was a stay away for me, but I think the numbers are just right.
Real quick here to just check in on one of the monster contests here in town. Survivor over at Circa, of course, Derek Stevens and company have done a tremendous job with that contest since it came into existence in 2020. There were, amazingly enough, it just shows how giant the field ended up being this year. There's still 18 left, even with all the ridiculousness that transpired the first 3 weeks of the season in Survivor pools across the land. So there are 18 left. We already mentioned 3 of the games that have gone off. Actually, we've mentioned 4 now. 2 are on the Colts, which, boy, what a sweat that is. 2 are on Green Bay. I think that's a pretty good job holding them to the end. 5 are on Tampa. That makes sense. Yep. But the leader in the clubhouse today, and boy, with our history with the Atlanta Falcons, Alex, I would not feel very confident even as an 8-point favorite, even needing the game, the Atlanta Falcons are held by 8 of the remaining 18 entries. 44.4% of the remaining entries are on the Atlanta Falcons here today in that contest. If the Falcons lose, there won't be, it'll be millionaires made in that contest because right now the implied value of each entry is just shy of $800,000 with the $14 million guarantee. Of course, 18 left. That's how you get the math on that. So.
I would not want to be in that spot with the Falcons here. And we saw last week with the Colts, and that really knocked out almost half of the field.
Yep. That one shy of half last week with God, could you imagine going out to that version of the Giants? Boy, it's pretty brutal. Pretty brutal any way you slice it there. But again, people are probably yelling, why didn't he use a reason? Remember, it's only one team, every team once.
Right.
So no one had the Ravens available. That's why there were no Baltimore selections going into this week. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll get the perspective from behind the counter. Vinny Magliulo will be on set. We'll then get the remainder of the 10 a.m. games, all the 125s, and a lot more. Sports by the book here on a NFL Sunday morning.
Get ready to laugh with Punchlines with Frank Nicotero. Join Frank and his team of featured guests for your daily dose of comedy.
Reno, the Pittsburgh of the West.
Poison.
Yeah.
Poison.
Sports.
F for Falcons, Alex. We were talking Derek Carr for MVP after 2 games.
Who's we?
Okay, me. I was.
And the funniest social media posts.
People want to show off their food. Boom. Wiener on a guy's shoulder. It's the Dark Colts. We bleed blue.
It's your one-stop spot for great laughs and a good time. Find us on YouTube at Punchlines FN and join the chat live weekdays at noon Pacific for the ultimate blend of jokes, sports, and viral fun.
We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south of the border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside.
Welcome back in Sports by the Book here on a Sunday morning. Jeff Parles, Alex White alongside, and now joining us last time in the NFL regular season for our good friend Vinny Magliulo.
Good morning. Week 18. How about this? Just talk about, I always say don't blink, right, when there's a number.
Yep.
How about don't blink when there's a season?
Yeah, no kidding.
Quickly.
No kidding.
Very
so,
quickly.
Vinny, let's rattle through all these. What's going on behind the counter? We rattled through a few of them already ourselves. 14 games to be had here today.
Yes, no Monday Night Football. We did have 2 yesterday, and of course, last night's result does have some implication for the a game this afternoon that we'll get to, which takes place right down the road here at Allegiant Stadium. So let's start with the Saints and Buccaneers. I don't think it's a shock here with the Bucs now sitting as 14.5-point favorites, and with all the injuries, Spencer Rattler for the Saints, injuries to the Saints. And Spencer Rattler going for the Saints here. 14.5, that's going to be one of the bigger decisions. But again, let's bear in mind this week, as we discussed with Chris Andrews the other day, numbers move much quicker and not the typical limits you would have. I mean, it's almost like a preseason approach with a lot of these games. But certainly a lot of carryover in terms of especially money line parlays and teasers. Bills and Patriots. We know that the Bills are really going to rest everybody. I don't know if we'll see regulars beyond maybe one or two series. I certainly not beyond the first quarter today. And the Bills still a field goal favorite. They dipped to 2.5 earlier in the week, but 36.5 on the total, which is down almost 4 points as well. Bears-Packers. Packers up to 10 in this game and 41, so it hasn't really been a whole lot of movement. We opened at 9 last week with the openers, and it's stood at 10 for the better part of the week. No Tua for the Dolphins. They're at the Jets. Jets are now the favorite, right? The Dolphins open as 2.5-point favorites. I don't think it's a real surprise here that money's come in on the Jets. Dolphins need a lot of help. I think, mathematically alive for a playoff spot, but they need to win, and they need some other teams to get beat. But right now, the Jets 1-39, total down a couple of points there. Carson Wentz in for the Chiefs. Lots of starters resting here. Broncos need the game, and this game is up to 11, and the total 40. Boy, we oftentimes talk about a number, right? We talked a few weeks back about how the Cowboys were an underdog against the Panthers. The Chiefs, with the best record in the NFL, are 11-point dogs today. So you can't help but do a double take on that. But obviously, given the circumstances where their regulars are not going to play and the Broncos need the game at home, this was also this is the second meeting. Remember, the Chiefs blocked a game-winning field goal, potential game-winning field goal, when these two teams met at Arrowhead earlier in the year. Chargers now here in town against the Raiders, and this is the game that I mentioned earlier that's been impacted by the Bengals win last night. If the Chargers win here, and now they're up to a 7-point favorite here at the South Point, they will improve their playoff position. They'll go ahead of the Steelers in terms of seeding. So Chargers are now a 7-point favorite, open 5.5, got as low as 4.5, and now up to 7. And that was an adjustment. So again, from our side of the counter, we held up on this game once the Steelers and Bengals took the field last night. Total on that game, 42, which is up a point. Jags and Colts right now, a little bit of a need for the Colts here. They opened 5. They're down to 3.5. Support for the Jaguars, 44.5 on the total, which is down a point off the opener. Falcons 8, up to 8.5 earlier in the week. Down to 8 now against the Panthers. 49 the total on this game, up a couple of points. Falcons need to win, and they need the Bucks to lose versus the Saints, which, as we know, as I mentioned, the Bucks better than 2 touchdown favorites. Commanders and Cowboys. And the Cowboys, Jeff, I'm sure you reported this. A quarterback change again.
So I will throw that out there real quick. So the one source on the Trey Lance is going to start thing is shaky.
It's a shaky source?
It's a shaky source. But less shakier sources are saying that we will see a lot of Trey Lance today.
Okay.
So
well, there you go.
Who knows if we will I'm we're based off social media reports. Mm-hmm. Trey Lance will get run. We just don't know how much run we will get. But expect at least some run for Trey Lance.
Well, keep shaking. It's Commanders up to a 7-point favorite. They're a touchdown now. They opened 3.5. It's been all Commanders all week here in Dallas. Seahawks and Rams. What's interesting about this game, the Rams are going to rest their starters. They could actually improve their position. And I think they could actually improve to the 3 seed with a victory. I think they sit as the 4 seed now, but it doesn't. I don't think it matters to Sean McVay. It looks like they'll host a playoff game, but not beyond that. And I think that's what his thinking is. So the starters, particularly offensive starters for the Rams, are going to rest today. Jimmy Garoppolo gets to start under center. Seahawks opened 3, but again, we had to adjust things. They were 6.5, better part of the week. Now they sit as 7.5-point favorites in Los Angeles today. Niners go with Dobbs today against the Cardinals. Cardinals are now 5. It's just been a pretty steady stream of Cardinal money all week. And again, these numbers have moved much quicker than they typically would. 42.5 on that total. Texans and Titans. Titans are now favored. Texans, their position is not going to improve in terms of the playoffs. And I think they're just trying to get healthier. I mean, and try to keep the healthy bodies they have now as healthy as possible. The Titans, I know, again, looks strange. Titans are a 2-point favorite here. So, again, numbers moving quite quickly. I'll save this game. We'll go out of rotation here. We'll go to the Giants and Eagles. We know the Eagles are resting everybody as well in Philadelphia. They're still 3-point favorites against the Giants. One of the lower totals, and if you look, a lot of these totals are low. This one's 36 off the 38 opener. And Giants looking to go on a 2-game winning streak here to end the season and weaken their draft position. But again, they're professionals and people fighting for their jobs. So the Eagles are 3-point favorite here, 36 on the total. And then the game of the day, which everybody will be involved with one way or the other, and there'll be certainly carry over to it. Vikings, Lions, and this will determine the NFC conference number 1 seed, right?
Yep.
So Lions 3 did tip to 2.5 very early in the week, and now it sits at 3 again. Highest total on the board, up to 56.5. That's almost 5 points higher than the opener. So a lot of implications for that game. It's an important game for both squads, obviously. Probably, people have asked me, who do you think it means more to? Well, I mean, given the injury situation, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, probably the Lions.
Yeah.
They did win a close game in Minnesota earlier this year. Vikings playing terrific. So good game here, and the primetime game tonight, which everybody will be involved with.
Totals up to 56.5.
Yep.
Don't think we're done yet, Vinny.
Probably not.
Don't think we're done yet.
People love the, and I guess, for fantasy players too, there's still some leagues that.
Thanks, Ryan.
There you go. Too soon, Jeff? Sorry.
No, it's okay. Real quick, just circling back to that Commanders-Cowboys game, we actually have some good sourcing now.
Now we have some not so shaky.
It is Trey Lance. It is Trey Lance.
Trey Lance is starting.
Now that game has taken on a whole different meaning for me now. I can't wait to see Lance play, see if he's actually not as big of a mess as he was the last time we saw him on an NFL field before he got hurt. So now I finally found something exciting from on top of a betting perspective for 10 a.m. We'll get to that game a little bit later. All right, Vinny, before we go, just to go macro here, and we'll talk about this through the week, just this NFL season obviously been about favorites.
Well, the last 2 months in particular.
The last 2 months in particular have been as wild of a favorite run as I think any of us can remember, at least recently.
I think the most favorites, straight up for sure. So, for the last 2 months, the most since I believe 1990.
So Vinny, just how has that impacted everything behind the counter?
How's that impacted?
You
saw me with my own broom, right? I'm running around here, picking up trash and things
is
like
this as simple as like you just when Sean comes to the window and cashes his bet, you just pat him on the back and say, "We'll see you next week."
You just walk up to the window and we give you money. Yeah. That's all. What's that? What's wrong with that?
All right, that sounds pretty good to me, Vinny. So, all right, Vicenz, thank you as always.
All right,
we'll see you tomorrow on the show. Vinny Magliulo, everyone. All right, we'll take a quick break ourselves. 1 minute, Drew Doug. When we get back, we continue going through all those 10 a.m. games, and we get to start with the Trey Lance Bowl. All right. Oh, I'm very excited now for this when we get back. Sports by the Book here on a Sunday.
South Point Casino has plenty of attractions for the whole family. Catch a movie. Our 16-screen movie theater includes 2 XD Extreme screens for the ultimate in viewing, sound, and luxury. After the show, treat the family to a variety of treats at our old-fashioned ice cream parlor, Kate's Corner. We scoop up a variety of creamy concoctions, including smoothies, hand-dipped cones, milkshakes, malts, sodas, and sundaes. At Kate's, there's something for everyone. And if you still got time to spare, our bowling center might be right up your alley. Voted Best of Las Vegas, it's a great place for friends and family fun. 64 lanes, a pro shop, snack bar, and arcade. And while the kids are bowling, you can play slots and sip on a drink in the Alley Cat Lounge while overlooking the lanes. For our more serious and professional bowlers, the South Point is also home to a separate tournament bowling plaza.
Welcome back in Sports by the Book, South Point Studio. Jeff Parles, Alex White, we're both here. All right, let's go to Dallas first. Trey Lance is starting for the Cowboys, and Alex, I am unbelievably excited to see this. I'm very curious to see what Trey Lance looks like because we haven't seen him in a real NFL game since he broke his ankle, foot, leg, everything, and that horrible, gruesome injury 2 years ago. We haven't seen it. I think it kind of tells you that he really just isn't much of anything, at least talent, or at least as an NFL quarterback, that we haven't seen him with Dak on the shelf for as long as we have this year. But I'm interested to see. Again, this guy was still the third overall pick in the NFL draft not that long ago, back in 2021. Washington, by the way, needs this game to clinch the 6, which, as we said before, it's the difference between playing either Tampa or the Rams in round 1 or Philly. So a nice size difference there, even spread-wise, even though I think Tampa matches up well with Washington. But if we get that matchup, we'll discuss it next week. It's up to 7 here in this one, Alex. From 3.5 to 7, I think this is a classic in game one. If this is Trey Lance shows you an semblance of being an actual NFL quarterback, yeah, this could be a tight game. If Trey Lance looks real bad, real quick, boy, this could be an absolute beatdown here. And I'll be looking to go after the Dallas team total under more so than anything in game.
I think you're okay too here with the Commanders, especially playing for that seed. And the Cowboys, I mean, they really looked like a different team. They have no CeeDee Lamb now. They did shut him down for the year. So I can't get there with them. And maybe in game if you can get enough points. But I like the Commanders side a lot in this one, especially now with news. And Cooper Rush, I thought he was improving each week and doing better, giving this offense some life. But now they've kind of just shut it all down. So it would be Commanders or pass for me.
And again, this is just going to be one of those where I want to see what Trey Lance looks like. In a sloppy early slate that we have, this is all of a sudden become the most intriguing game by a significant margin for me with this one, and it doesn't have too much to do with the betting perspective. All right, one I'm not intrigued by at all are the Texans taking on the Titans. Titans have clinched being the worst NFL spread team in history, Alex, with their non-cover last week. Very impressive. Very, very impressive. This one is a little bit funky here because the Titans are 2.5-point favorites. Remember, the Titans did win outright in Houston a little over a month ago, as ridiculous as that seems. But the Texans, I think, are going to play their guys a little bit longer than the market is giving them credit for here, because this has gone really poorly for Houston, especially the last time we saw them where they were shut out on offense. And honestly, Alex, I know people will probably laugh at this, but 31-2 seems a lot more embarrassing than 31-0. In all honesty, 31-2 at least makes it seem like you tried on that. But look, I think we're going to see them play their guys a little bit longer than we expect here. So I would tread very carefully here. If you want to do your first half trend, Alex, and this just shows how screwy this week is. Have a 2.5-point underdog for the game, is a 0.5-point favorite in the first half.
Oh my gosh.
Here in this game. But you can get this in week 18 when you are where the market is anticipating a Houston plays their guys for the first half, but then we see a lot of Davis Mills in the second half.
I like Houston for the full game, and I am surprised that there's been so much movement here on the Titans. I actually jumped in at 1.5, so I got a bad number here, but I do expect them to win this game outright, especially, as you mentioned, they really need a get-right spot the last 2 times, and it was better competition. It was against the Chiefs and then the Ravens, where they only had 2 points, but they're in the playoffs. They need to get right here in this spot. So I do think we'll see the starters for a little bit longer.
The biggest name out today for Houston's Will Anderson. That's the biggest name. Their star second-year pass rusher. Denico Autry's not playing. Fotokasi's not playing. So there are a few defensive guys just sitting here today, injury or not, here in this one. So again, just, as always with all these games here in Week 18.
With Mason Rudolph on the other side.
Yeah, well, is Mason Rudolph's got to be higher than Levis in the power rankings, though, right?
Yeah,
it's close.
It's very close.
Neither guy particularly good. We'll go with that one. I actually kind of like Houston first half. It's just like you're C.J. Stroud. I mean, C.J. Stroud was awful on Christmas Day against the Ravens. Like, this kind of want to like, hey, just get your mojo back before the playoff game, regardless if it's the Chargers or the Steelers in round one. Just get your mojo back more so than anything. All right, let's go to Philadelphia next. The Eagles taking on the Giants, and it's the Philadelphia backups here today. And the Philadelphia backups are still favored in this one here. Jalen Hurts, by the way, still in concussion protocol. That's something to monitor for at least next week here, Alex, where Eagles obviously have to play either a week from today or 6 days from now in the first round of the playoffs. But Tanner McKee, that's new. Will Levis starting for the Titans. That's good. Great. Well, now I would definitely want to bet Houston. Sorry. No, we have Levis there in Tennessee. By the way, Tanner McKee starts for Philly here today. Tanner McKee actually looked okay last week when he was put in the game. Giants, look, fan base and sense they won last week, but that's a different discussion for everyone on the field. Jobs on the line, obviously, on this. I don't know what to do here. If you told me you took the Giants on the money line, fine. Can't really argue with you on that, with the Eagles playing basically most of their backups here today. Only Kansas City's list of people not playing is more ridiculous than Philadelphia's list here today. Barkley, of course, not in. Neither big wide receivers playing. Hurts, as we know, is not playing. You are going to see a little bit of Dallas Goedert, though, which is a little bit surprising. But again, coming back from injury, It makes a little bit of sense to at least get him back in the flow of things. Here's the list of inactives, by the way. You want me to read through it real quick? It actually might be more ridiculous than the Kansas City one. Jalen Hurts, Darius Slay, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Nakobe Dean, Saquon Barkley, Zach Bond, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickinson, Jalen Carter. I think I named their 11 best players, actually, are not playing. So it is legitimately the Eagles' second string against the Giants here today. So it's either, this will sound funky, it's either lay the 3 with the Eagles or money line the Giants. I don't see a game landing within 3. I think this is the classic. If the dog covers, they win the thing outright.
Well, I took the points here with the Giants, but enough. I do think that they will win outright. I think that this number is a little over-exaggerated for the Eagles and their second string, especially a lot of the defensive guys are out. And Vinny mentioned it. I mean, the Giants did win last week, so Drew Lock coming in with a little bit of confidence here. Remember, when the Eagles lost to Tampa Bay, they were missing both wide receivers. They were missing Brown and Smith, and they looked awful in that game. They really didn't even show up, and that was with Jalen Hurts. It's a huge drop-off from Jalen Hurts to Kenny Pickett or Tanner McKee, so I like the Giants in this one.
Let's go to the 125 Pacific, 425 Eastern slot. We'll go to the Meadowlands first, the New York Jets, and what could very well be the final game of Aaron Rodgers' career. Take on the Miami Dolphins. Tyler Huntley is expected to get the start, barring a big shock on the Miami side. Tua did not play last week. Would be a stunner if he goes here today. Miami needs to win. The Broncos need to lose. That's the 2-team parlay in order to get the Miami Dolphins into the postseason here. Alex, I bet the Jets earlier in the week when they were an underdog. This has the makings of a New York Jets special. Win a game that busts up your draft position for the only reason of protection of jobs. Again, Jeff Ulbrich is not going to be the permanent head coach. That run has been as bad as you could have asked for, or not asked for, any way you could look at. And look, the Dolphins, last week, I think Cleveland is in a different realm of bad from the Jets are. They're in a different realm. Cleveland, look at what the quarterback played for the Browns. As bad as Rodgers was last week, he's still better than anything Cleveland had been throwing out the last few weeks, especially since putting Jameis on the bench. And for Miami, again, weather-wise here today, yes, they won a cold weather game last week. I understand. You're looking at, boy, you missed the snow by a day, by the way, Alex. 34 degrees with 15-mile-an-hour winds a kick. So the wind is going to play a factor here. That's why the total's in the 30s here.
Nothing for me in this one. I mean, with the 1 point and it shifting each way, you basically just have to have a strong conviction on who you think is going to win this game, and I really have no idea. I still have the Dolphins -1 with Huntley in, but do I trust them here in this spot? Not really. And the Jets on the other side, I understand it's Aaron Rodgers' could be Aaron Rodgers' last game, so I can't fault you for taking that side.
Going to Denver next. And now this is the most important game on the AFC playoff picture side. If the Denver Broncos against Carson Wentz win, and by the way, the list of guys not playing for Kansas City, we don't have the official inactive actives yet. Here's what we got right now for Kansas City of the guys who are expected not to play or have already officially been ruled out here today. Isaiah Pacheco, Juwan Taylor, Juwan Howard. No, we're not talking playing basketball here, Jeff. Mecole Hardman, Jalen Watson, Chris Jones, Patrick Mahomes, Trent McDuffie, Nick Bolton, Kareem Hunt, George Karlaftis, Travis Kelce, Drew Tranquil, Justin Reed. All those guys have either been officially ruled out or were doubtful on Friday. Carson Wentz is going to get the start. There's also a rumbling out of KC that we might only see Wentz for a half in this game. We might see Chris Aludicon, the undrafted player out of Samford who's been in the league for 3 years, get the second half reps in this one. So, boy, I mean, if I knew Wentz was going the whole game, I'd actually take Kansas City pretty comfortably, plus 11, and take them on the money line as well for this game, because this kind of screams idiocy more so than anything. First half-wise, I'm already on Kansas City. I took 7 first half with the Chiefs. The big thing here in this is if the Denver defense has their act together in this game, with all those guys out for Kansas City, it's going to be very hard for them to score enough points. Unless if Knicks blows up, I expect Denver to win, get into the playoffs for the first time since 2015. But this is a boatload of points, even against the Kansas City backups here, Alex.
It is, and that's the way I would look. I like your 7 for the first half with the Chiefs. I actually played over 40 for these two because I do expect Carson Wentz to have some success, and I hope that we do see him longer than just the first half. But overall career, completed 63% of his passes, 6.7 yards per attempt. And then Bo Nix has done good with the Broncos, and their offense has gotten going. So you bring up their defense, which was very good, especially a big chunk of the season, but we have seen them let up as of late. So I'm expecting some points in this one to get over a low number of 40.
Boy, this is for Denver more than anything. Again, this is the second longest playoff drought in the NFL, which for a franchise that had just been until this run of ineptitude has been one of the more consistent franchises in the NFL. Let's be honest. They're in the playoffs basically every other year, in the Super Bowl a lot, of course, with Elway and Payton. And here you are now with almost, if they miss, it's a decade-long drought. If they lose today, assuming Miami, well, doesn't matter. Cincinnati already won yesterday. So Denver has to win this game in order to get in. Pretty crazy that sort of franchise that has been so consistent through most of their history has been so inconsistent without a playoff appearance since winning the Super Bowl 50 a decade ago. So see how it plays out. Again, I expect Denver to win, but I think it may be a little more sweaty than you may like.
Right. We did have a comment in the chat, and it's not from Minidar talking about the Broncos. It is from Agent 87, who does say go Broncos, and it's about time that they make the playoffs again. And then Flo is in there too.
Oh, I wonder what carnage he's causing in there here today. All right, let's go to the game just down the road here, Alex. So this line has moved up because last night's result in Pittsburgh, which had the Bengals, by the way, of course, the game landing right on the number, by the way. Bengals winning by 2 somehow. Now, and also only scoring 1 touchdown in the game, and still was enough for a very weird game last night, to say the very least. This is now a very meaningful game for the Chargers, and we talked about this yesterday. The Chargers win now. They are the 5 seed, which is the difference between being a touchdown at least underdog in Baltimore next week, or if they're the 5, which with a win they would be, might even be favored next week in Houston. So this is a huge game now for the Chargers. From 5.5 to 7 now on this game. Total 42. Alex, I kind of like the under actually more so than anything. Now this is going to be played as a straight-up game by the Chargers.
Yeah.
How are the Raiders scoring in this game, even with Aiden O'Connell back and honestly looking pretty good the last 2 weeks?
Yeah.
I think this is a low-scoring grinder game here more than anything that is played in the way that Jim Harbaugh likes. So I actually like under now that this game means something for LA at 42 under.
I don't mind that at all. That is, I mean, with this current number at 7, or if you want to put the Chargers in a teaser leg, but we did talk about this yesterday, and I gave out the Bengals money line and the Chargers -4.5. So that's part of the reason. I was talking to Chris Andrews before the show too. That's part of the reason with this jump all the way to 7 is because they do have some parlays out there that are still live. Although the Steelers plus money and the Raiders plus money, those are no longer good. But I like the Chargers in this spot. We know they don't want to go to Baltimore and face John Harbaugh. They already faced them once this year and it did not go well. So I expect a big effort from LA today.
Yeah, I would pick that. I'm very curious to see what a Charger Texan line would end up being actually next week. Again, I think the Chargers should be the slightest of road favorites in that game. And quite frankly, I'd lay it with the way Houston has played, especially going up against a high-end defense like the Chargers, especially when the Chargers have been brilliant away from home this year as well. Totally backwards there. But, boy, by the way, the Raiders, it does not seem like it's a slam dunk that this is going to be a regime change, at least in the coaching staff, which is kind of shocking, in all honesty, with everything that's transpired this year with the Raiders. All right, the other L.A. team, Alex, the Rams. The Seahawks. This is one of those where the market did some weird things. So Matthew Stafford got ruled out, and then the market immediately popped it to 7 from 6, which, all right, kind of already knew. Yeah. Seahawks would be a 6-point favorite on the road against the Rams if Matthew Stafford was playing, right, Alex? Like in a normal circumstance? Sure. Jimmy Garoppolo, who, by the way, is not a pushover as the backup quarterback for the Rams. Yes, I know that Nakua and Kyron Williams and Kupp and probably a few offensive linemen. I understand that. I understand there's incentives on the line for the Seahawks, a 10-win season, even with no playoffs on here. But, Alex, I see 7.5, and I'm like, wait a second here. This is a lot of points to be getting with a non-pushover quarterback here with Garoppolo. I think it's 7.5. I think this is going to only be a take on the Rams, and if the Seahawks blast them, so be it.
I mean, getting the hook there, I don't mind it. I really have the Seahawks 4.5 with the adjustments and taking everybody out, but just beware, they do have 3 offensive linemen out as well, and they're skill players. So it's a little tough. But, I mean, Sean McVay, great coach, and we've seen him find ways to win these the last week of the year games with backup quarterbacks in the past. So getting 7.5 is a lot of points here.
They do have a lot of wide receiver depth, though. So even without Kupp and Nakua in this game, I still have got like Tutu Atwell can play. Tutu Atwell, DeMarcus Robinson. Like there are guys that can still play that will get reps in this game for the Rams, at least at that wide receiver position.
I don't mind them resting their players either.
That's right. Look, it's not as cut and dry as some are making it out to be, because if they win, they're guaranteed the 3. If they lose, and again, assuming Tampa handles their business, the Bucs move to the 3 and the Rams move to the 4. So you would get, again, difference between Washington and the NFC North runner-up is a difference.
Right.
But again, with the beating that Stafford has taken this year, this is the one team where it's like, all right, you technically have some stuff to play for. I don't mind them taking the foot off the gas. Get Stafford right. You got a home game. You know what? Even against Detroit or Minnesota, they'll be a very live home underdog next week. And you know what? I'd be curious to see where the Minnesota line actually would come, especially with how tonight potentially looks if that ends up being the matchup.
Well, and that's another great point, right? Yeah. This is a huge game tonight. So the loser is coming off of this big matchup to go to LA. Yeah. So
let's get the last game. This one is completely meaningless before we get to the game that means everything. The Niners and the Cardinals. Oh boy. I actually laid it with the Cardinals, as ridiculous as that may seem, Alex, because again, the Niners season from hell. No Purdy here today. It's going to be Dobbs in this one. Revenge spot, by the way, Alex. Arizona, this is It's a weird one for Arizona this year where, again, they had a very low win total that they ended up going over pretty easily. But the way this season it kind of was a disappointment that they're going to end up at 7-10 or 8-9. Just with the fact that midway through, it looked like, this team is
right.
Co-favorites to win the NFC West at one point during the year. But I did lay it. I just think the Niners, I think this is just one of those like, all right, let's just get this over with at this point.
That is the only way I would play it. I mean, the Niners are coming off a short week, too, and a big game against the Lions, and you could tell that they were really putting it all out in that game. So I don't expect much from them today in this one, but no definite play in this one.
All right, Alex, we hit them all except for the biggest one on the board, the number 1 seed, and quite frankly, to me, the way the NFC playoffs play out come down to this game here tonight. The Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings, as we all expected, both teams at 14-2. First matchup in NFL history where first regular season matchup in NFL history where both teams have 14 or more wins. That would have been very hard to do in the past. It would have had to have been 14-1 and 14-0 versus each other. But here you go. Detroit 3 total. It's going to close the highest total of the year. I feel pretty confident on that. We're at 56.5 right now. I don't think we're done yet moving up on that total. What are your thoughts here? Hell of a game here, Alex.
I mean, I am on the over. If you're talking about explosive plays, you've got number 1 and number 2. The Lions, number 2, 61 pass plays of 20 yards or more, and the Vikings are number 1 with 62 pass plays of 20 yards or more. But on the defensive side, it's the same story. The Lions have given up 60 pass plays on defense of 20 yards or more. Only Jacksonville has more. And Minnesota surprisingly has given up 50 of those big plays. So I think we're going to get a lot of offense in this game. I do like the over. Be careful. I think now 56.5 is probably the highest. And I do like the Lions. I didn't lay it yet, but if I'm going to play the side, it's going to be Detroit. I think they need this. I think that they've been prepping all year for this. They're also very good in primetime under Dan Campbell, 5-0 this year. They're 10-2 in primetime games with him. And Minnesota's the opposite. They've lost 5 straight in primetime games. And you can say that's more of a Kirk Cousins thing, but it happened once this year as well. So Detroit's the team for me and the side. And there's a lot of people who like the Vikings, but you haven't seen this number move too much. So there's got to be a lot of two-way action.
Those are road primetime games, right?
Road primetime.
Yeah, right. I think that's the case. Real quick, I'll just ask you this, Alex. With the way that this season has gone, obviously you were higher than most on Minnesota going into the year, and obviously I don't think anyone in their wildest dreams expected this. This is really for me, and Vinny brought this up earlier, of who this game is more important for. This game is for Minnesota. Look, you're playing with house money. As ridiculous as that sounds, for 14-2 division on the line, still an underdog in this game. This is a scenario that no one expected them to be, and they were the long shot in the division in the NFC North. For Detroit, this is everything. If you don't get the 1 seed with all those injuries on defense and you have to go 3 road games to make the Super Bowl, it's not happening. As good as that offense is, it is not happening. And for Minnesota, look, I think they're actually, as ridiculous as this sounds, I think they're better. If they lose, they're more likely to be able to win 3 road games than Detroit is, just because of the nature of the injuries that the Lions have on defense. And I think they really need to reset the batteries. They have been, by the way, they had a week 5 bye, Detroit. So they've been going for a long time. With this all said, Alex, I like the Lions. I do like the Lions tonight. I think when this is all said and done, as great as Minnesota has been this year offensively, and they do have the better defense in this game, I just think Detroit scores enough points in this game to get the win. I like Detroit on the money line. I don't want to lay the 3. We'll just lay the money line with Detroit, and I also think they can't make this total high enough. Even at the bad number, I still like this game over. I'm pulling a Nicotero here, favorite and over, but I do like the over, and I do like Detroit here tonight.
Regardless, it is going to be a really good game, and we saw the first matchup did not disappoint and landed right there on that 3. But I'm a little concerned, too, with Aaron Jones last week. Came out of that game, had a little bit of a quad injury, so I don't know how effective he will be for Minnesota in this one. So Lions have to get it done here. They have to get this win. I think I agree with you. As good as they have been on the road this year, which they have been very good with Dan Campbell, but I'm going with Jared Goff. I think he's the more experienced and will be ready for this big moment.
What a game. What a game to end the regular season in the National Football League here today, and we will be here to break it down tomorrow morning. Alex White, Kenny White will be here at 9 a.m. to get you ready for everything on Monday, the NFL playoff bracket. You'll also be looking ahead to the college football playoff semifinals that get going next week. And then Ryan McCormick and I also FCS championship game tomorrow night.
Yep,
Montana State going for the title in an undefeated season against the Bison of North Dakota State. And then Ryan and I are back tomorrow afternoon. Obviously there's the FCS title game, but we're going to be breaking down every angle we can find in the NFL playoffs tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock right here on Football Frenzy here at Sports by the Book on the South Point studio. All right, Alex, good luck. Sean, Drew Dog, thank you. Good luck to everyone. Final week, enjoy it. Enjoy these loaded slates. You're going to miss them when the month of June wraps around, to say the very least. I'm Jeff Parles. We'll see you again next time. Sports by the Book.